Few tasks are as necessary or complicated in the federal government as migrating day-to-day IT operations from aging and outdated legacy hardware and software to more modern and flexible cloud platforms. One agency that has spent the past 2 years on just such a journey is the Federal Communications Commission. I'm Wyatt Cash with Scoop News Group, and to talk about that journey and what it required and what FCC hopes to accomplish when it's completed later this year is Don Tweedie, Deputy Chief Information Officer at the FCC. And also joining us to provide added insights on what goes into ensuring these kinds of migrations are successful is Mickey Iqbal, Director of Worldwide Public Sector Technologists at AWS. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. And Don, let me start with you. Take us back in time. What was the catalyst for deciding not to simply refresh the FCC's technology, but really rather mount a full-scale migration to the cloud?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I'm happy to share about FCC's approach and some of the considerations we took with transitioning from the data center to the cloud. So there wasn't really one specific catalyst not to refresh. It was a culmination of things. We realized early on that merely refreshing hardware wasn't going to solve our deeper technology challenges. So we looked at things from a 360 perspective, the business, the technology, and the security. And we asked ourselves three questions again. Was it cost effective? And did it have budget management? Did the systems and services, were they scalable? And also, did it align with our security controls and zero trust architecture? We knew that if we invested in new servers or switches or racks in 3 to 5 years, especially considering the budgetary constraints, we would be back in the same position, dependent on aging infrastructure. So we also wanted to bring services to our business owner in a more rapid fashion and have modular modern capabilities. And under our current conditions, it was just taking too long. There was also the increased security posture that wanted to get at scale with things like automated patch management, encryption, identity management, and robust monitoring. And there was limitations in the data center. We also wanted to drive down costs and maximize resources. And so we realized that going to the cloud, we wouldn't have physical limitation dependencies. We would be able to right size. And in the case that a work package came in that increased compute, we'd have cloud burst capabilities and also transaction-based technologies to leverage. And so really that would mean a more cost-efficient and greater delivery solution for us.
Appreciate that. And then, I think whenever we talk to agencies about migrating to the cloud, the discussion isn't just about gaining greater digital flexibility. It's also about dealing with what a lot of CIOs often call technical debt. Can you describe kind of your view of the technical debt that the FCC face and what you expected to really accomplish by moving to the cloud?
Yeah, I mean, FCC is not unique in this nature. I mean, the technology debt is real. And so there's outdated legacy infrastructure. And so we had decade-old legacy systems that were really costly to maintain, and they became increasingly difficult to secure. There's also the operational inefficiencies, and they didn't scale very effectively. So we knew going to cloud would allow us the ability to consolidate and centralize systems and services, improve efficiency, and really have access to cloud native tools. And that would help us drive better data-driven decision making. There's also the agility and support of rapid innovation. We'd be able to deploy new capabilities in a more modular fashion. Then we looked at the technology debt with the security and compliance standards. Cyber threats have evolved nowadays, and compliance became more challenging on premises. And cloud offered us a continuous updated security framework that aligned with our federal compliance standards like FedRAMP. And so then there was the cost avoidance. Instead of continuing to invest in the technology debt and have it reoccur with the physical infrastructure, which is very CapEx heavy, we saw cloud as a more flexible and cost efficient model. And so we shifted to an OpEx. And for our agency, that was better long term.
Absolutely. Mickey, let me bring you in here. AWS and its partners have been helping federal agencies migrate to and operate on the cloud for well over a decade. But what stood out about the FCC's requirements compared to other federal agencies from your perspectives?
Wyatt and Don, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me to this discussion. We are really thrilled to be a partner with FCC in their digital transformation journey. The FCC's migration really, from our perspective, stood out in three distinct ways. First, a very aggressive timeline coupled with complex legacy systems and technical debt that Don just described. And this technical debt needed to be addressed in a very methodical fashion. That was the second part. And the third one was, the way they succeeded in managing significant organizational change. What really impressed us most was the FCC team's approach to how they overcame these challenges. With regard to the aggressive timeline, legacy systems, and technical debt, they implemented a methodical wave-based migration strategy. In addition to that, they went through a very thorough application dependency mapping to understand the integration that was required between different systems as they moved to the new environment, from the current state to the target state environment. And then there was very good, strong stakeholder trust building that was done by the FCC leadership throughout the process. And this last point was crucial. Federal agencies typically operate in a very risk-averse environment. So the FCC's ability to earn trust from application owners and stakeholders was really remarkable. They very effectively communicated the benefits and managed concerns, which significantly had a positive impact on this transition.
Don, back to you. Mickey raised a really interesting point about the application sort of rationalization and the importance of getting that right. Can you describe a little bit more about how the FCC approached that, and what other tasks did you have to accomplish as part of your planning and execution strategy?
Yeah, so I would break our important tasks down into really two core areas: the planning and preparation, and then the execution side of the house. And so one of the most important tasks on the planning side is we opened up all the closet doors. We needed to understand our legacy systems, the hidden dependencies, or the fragile workarounds that could haunt our move to the cloud. So we did focus extensively on application rationalization. We needed to understand the business services and the technology inflection points, also the logic that went behind it. And so that gave us a blueprint to move forward in a standardized fashion for delivery. So when you think you have rationalization down, do it again and do it once more, because you're going to miss something. Over the years with aging infrastructure and technology debt, you're going to have undocumented maintenance activities and even staff attrition that's going to get you the gotchas. So that's important. The other area is the data security and alignment with our zero trust. We wanted a secure hybrid cloud architecture, so we focused on that as well. We integrated our security controls across our on-premise and cloud, and that included our unified logging and monitoring and incident response. And so we embedded early a continuous compliance monitoring plan with our rationalization. And then there's the execution side of the house. We developed a digital playbook, and that was important for us to have a strategy to standardize practice and service delivery. So we built scalable, secure cloud-first solutions based off of that. And then more importantly is the customer communication. As Mickey mentioned, it's very risk adverse. If it's not broke, why fix it? And so we created a seamless, personalized customer experience and got the business buy-in. And that was really key to advancing our cloud-first strategy.
I'm intrigued to hear about sort of those hidden dependencies I suspect lurk in many agencies' closets. And Mickey, back to you. What, in your experience, do agencies often underestimate about cloud migrations? And how do AWS and your partners fill some of the critical talent and skills gaps?
Agencies commonly underestimate several critical aspects of cloud migrations in our experience. First, they underestimate the cultural and organizational change that may be required. And this includes retraining of staff, changes to existing workflows and processes. And of course, there's always some resistance to change that they have to overcome, as well as putting together new governance structures to manage the new environment. The second thing we see different agencies underestimate is the technical complexity sometimes. And this is something which I think FCC did a wonderful job of managing. So the challenges include, integration with legacy systems, data migration complexity and timeline, security and compliance requirements like Don mentioned, and then network architecture modifications. There's also resource requirements that we see sometimes being underestimated. And the true cost of migration actually really depends on making sure that you get these resource requirements right, as well as plan for the time needed for execution and implementation. Required skilled personnel are hard to get, especially in federal government. I think I've seen many agencies struggle there as well as ensuring that they've got the right staffing levels to have ongoing operational support. And the final thing I would say is, again, we've talked about this before, but it really comes down to application dependencies, those dependencies between interconnected systems that need to be very well understood, especially the hidden dependencies that are not that easy to find, and they're buried somewhere in code or age documentation. And of course, the need for application refactoring in many cases also is underestimated. Now, how do AWS and partners fill these gaps? Well, first of all, we provide the right technical support, which includes the migration tools and frameworks, and offering specialized expertise, having standardized reference architectures that our customers can deploy as they're going through their digital transformation journey. Secondly, AWS, their partners also help our customers with financial optimization, and this may include migration credits, cost optimization guidance, TCO analysis, as well as flexible pricing models. Another aspect where we assist is in training and education. We have technical training programs, certification paths, documentation, best practices, as well as hands-on labs that AWS and their partners provide to our customers to ensure that we've got the right resources trained with the right level of skills. And then finally, it's program management, where we provide migration assessment tools, project management frameworks, as well as change and risk mitigation strategies. And I should also mention that both AWS and their partners are very involved with our customers, especially FCC, with ongoing support as well, which includes account management and continuous optimization recommendations once the initial transformation is done.
Appreciate your outlining that. All those are important dimensions for successful migrations, for sure. So Don, bring us up to date. Where is the FCC now in its migration journey, and how do you envision your IT team will be able to operate differently once the migration is complete?
Yes, this is one of those proud agency, team, and vendor partner questions I love to answer. So we've had great success with cloud migration. So in 20 months, less than 20 months, we've migrated about 94% of our data center. Also, in doing that, we've decommissioned and consolidated almost 300 servers. And for our infrastructure, that's roughly 28% of a physical footprint. That means less labor hours spent on patching, securing, and maintenance. So it was a real resource saver. So our maintenance decreased, and we then shifted and increased focus on optimization, focused on cloud. So when you talk about operating differently once your migration is complete, well, we've actually already started shifting the way in which we operate throughout the migration journey. So we've shifted from focusing from keeping the lights on to managing scalable, resilient cloud services. We've evolved from a reactive support approach to a proactive strategic enablement. Also, we now have cost visibility. It's part of our core tenet. We focus on tuning, and that's become a core skill. We're also able to track and manage costs better with on-demand services and cost monitoring. So in addition, and most importantly, the team has become more responsive in the business needs and external demands. So now the business sees us as an innovative partner and not just a support function.
Well, it sounds like you've really made a lot of transformational progress in a relatively short period of time. That's very impressive. Well, finally, just to wrap up, gentlemen, what would each of you say are 2 or 3 lessons that the FCC and AWS and its partners kind of have learned over these past 2 years with the FCC's journey? And Don, maybe you could take that one first.
Sure. Some of that 3 lessons I learned was start small and deliver quick wins. So we wanted to demonstrate value early, and that would help create momentum for larger cloud initiatives. We also, engaged security early. So we embedded compliance from the beginning, and that prevented costly rework and ensured a secure cloud adoption. And then we prioritized governance, a CCOE. We embedded FinOps, and we had budget management controls. Those are important lessons learned. And we also safeguarded against resources effectively in their utilization.
Appreciate that. And Mickey?
Yeah, first of all, agree with all the great lessons learned that Don just mentioned. It was really great experience. We've identified two critical lessons from this migration. The first one, and Don mentioned this as well, was to establish cloud governance early. Implement very clear security policies, define robust access controls, and standardize your deployment procedures. This helped a lot. The second one was to also embrace cloud native operations quickly. So you've done the transformation, you've moved from your on-premises to cloud future state. The job is not really done. So things like implementing auto-scaling for cost optimization, using managed services to reduce operational overhead, and adopting DevSecOps practices for faster and more secure deployments. Those are great things that help. And so the key takeaways for, I would say, federal IT leaders who are listening to this is to plan thoroughly, but also be prepared to adapt quickly to fully leverage the cloud native capabilities. This balance of careful planning and agile execution was, in our view, very central to the success of the FCC's migration.
Those are some great recommendations. And I know on one level, easier said than done, but on the other level, knowing the sort of experience that you all bring to your respective positions and, just the focus on the mission at the end of the day, making sure you're focusing on the right things really helps to drive that forward. Well, Don Tweedie and Mickey Iqbal, thank you very much for sharing your respective perspectives on cloud migration at the FCC, and we'll look forward to continue following how that journey continues in the months in the years ahead. So thank you both very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you as well.